whatever machine learning is doing and allowing for predictions, it doesn't seem easily decomposable to a set of listable rules and a map of their interactions.
So the implication here is that reality is not purely rationalistic or purely material because... Hey guys, so here is the critical question. Is Jordan Peterson generally a good thinker? And more specifically, does he debunk himself here in this video that we're about to analyze? Now, I have a sneaking suspicion that he does not. But we are going to watch, we are going to analyze completely, come to the objectively correct verdict. And then we're going to see if the Pang Burn audience got it right themselves. Let's get into it.
I want to address the rule system that you're putting together. Okay, so I was talking to a friend of mine who's an AI engineer. He's a very smart guy. And we've been talking about the foundations of cognition. And you know that artificial intelligence systems don't run on rules. Right?
Well, some of them do.
Well...
And certainly they run on an operating system that is full of rules.
That's actually not relevant in this case.
But that's the physical
foundation. Because they could operate on all sorts of different operating systems.
Well,
but okay, so
but there's a foundation. The foundation I'm pointing to is the physical facts of the universe, and that would be roughly consistent with the hardware and the operating system that they're running on. But I'm sorry.
Okay, no. I mean, that's a reasonable objection too. But look, one of the things that happened and I think this is one of the...
So the title of this video, as you might be able to see, is Jordan Peterson Debunks Jordan Peterson with a whole bunch of question marks. Because Peterson is saying that AI cannot be run based off of rules. I imagine he's going to make that comparison to humans. I don't really think that this is a debunking at all, and I'll tell you why when we get towards more of the meat and potatoes. Let's keep watching.
The problems with the we can generate a rational system of rules that can govern our behavior approach is that since the 1980s, people have been trying to build rule-based expert systems that can do relatively simple things. Relatively simple. They're not that simple. Like basic medical diagnosis. They don't work. Rule-based systems don't work. You can't get them to operate intelligently, which is why machine learning came about to begin with. Because whatever machine learning is doing and allowing for predictions, it doesn't seem easily decomposable to a set of listable rules and a map of their interactions.
So the implication here is that reality is not purely rationalistic or purely material because otherwise it's reducible to a set of rules. Maybe the physical universe itself purely is reducible to a set of rules, although, physicists are still working on that. But reality overall and your attempts to act in it cannot be governed purely by rationalism is basically his claim, and his evidence for this is the fact that they've been trying to do it with computers and it doesn't work, which may give us insight into how human beings actually operate or how we don't operate, which is purely rationally. And maybe that's not a flaw in the human animal, but maybe it's actually a necessity. Who knows? I think that's where he's driving.
The world doesn't seem to work that way. And I would say, back to the metaphysical substrate argument, you laid a...
For those who don't know what metaphysical substrate is, it's just a way of talking about reality. It's a reference to what reality is when you're not referring to the physical universe. That's what it means.
Forward a set of propositions, and the reason I was perhaps inappropriately torturing you about them is because there's a metaphysic under them. There's something that's driving you to put those forward as reasonable. You say, well, they're self-evidently reasonable. See, my question is...
I didn't actually say it, but okay.
Well, it's something like that, because you said, well, reasonable...
Yeah, Jordan, don't misquote a guy. I know that's like what you think he's essentially saying, and you can make that argument, but don't assume that argument when you're quoting somebody back to them. And he's correcting himself here. He's excited and talking fast. But yeah, rule number 1 of having productive conversation. When you quote somebody back to them, make sure you do it right. And if you're gonna make an argument about what they're really saying, make the full argument.
People could agree on these 3 or something similar. It seems to me that what you're saying is that there is a set of finite axioms that reasonable people could conceivably agree on, from which you could generate a rule-based moral system. Have I got that wrong? Like, I thought that's what you said.
It's curious because I didn't say that.
See, that's the right response once he messed up, is that he's asking to make sure he's got it. Good job, Jordan.
But it's very close to something that I have said in the past, which is, for any given situation, there's a finite set of actions that a person could take. And some set of those actions are better than others with respect to whatever the goal is. If the goal is to continue, a decent life or improve the quality of your life, some set of...
Right, okay, so better or worse according to what the goal is, all fine. Who sets the goals? Why are the goals, as opposed to any other set of goals? These are the kind of deep religious metaphorical questions that you have to answer. I want to see if Matt can do it.
One or more actions that you could take in this instant produces results that are better in ways that we would agree they're better. Like throwing Sam off the stage. If we were in that situation,
must be an unconscious fantasy going on here or something, eh? Because we keep returning to that.
And it's fun. But one of the possible actions of this set of actions would be for me to throw him off the stage. Another possible set of action would be for me to, shield him. It is clear, and you can say that I'm just saying it's self-evident, it is clear that one of those is going to be more in Sam's best interest, and perhaps even more in mine, than another.
Right, but you have to define best interest, dude. Right? Like, it's clear that it's in his best interest if you assume multiple things about his best interest that you have to just assume. Now, a lot of people are fine with that. That's the whole idea of a maxim or an a priori assumption. But you just have to admit that you are making a priori assumptions about what ought to be in the universe. And unlike religious people, you admit that they are baseless assumptions, while religious people claim that they are not baseless. Now, whether or not either of those claims is true is up for debate, but at least the religious people aren't self-defeating and calling themselves arbitrary.
That's all we're saying. We're not pretending remotely that we have the answer to every possible scenario, just that we have the foundational tool set that allows us to come up with the right answers. And we do this in opposition.
Yeah, but you also think that you can do that with a set of rules.
So first of all...
I actually don't think that's technically tenable. I don't think there's any evidence for that.
I don't...
So is Peterson going to debunk his own self-help books, 12 Rules for Life? They're a little bit more than self-help books, actually. I've read them. But that's a lot of what they are. They're very good, in my opinion. So is he going to debunk himself by debunking the idea of rules? Let's see. Let's let him keep going before I give my verdict.
I don't know why it wouldn't be.
Well, you can't build expert systems, for example.
Well, you can't say that you can't because...
Well, we've tried for about 40 years with no success.
Gee, 40 years out of 13.7 billion.
Okay, that's actually a good objection by Matt. That's one of Matt's best points I've actually ever heard him make, which is, yeah, drop in the bucket, bro. But yeah, we'll see.
We haven't cracked it yet, so it's impossible.
No. But 40 years of exponentially increasing computational power with no solution on the horizon except for AI.
So and the latest AI thing, which I absolutely love because I'm a chess player, is the DeepMind Alpha Zero thing that learned the entirety of what humans know about playing chess in 4 hours or so, and then beat the best previous chess computer. And people are saying, oh, it's the beginning of Skynet because now we have this sort of thinking. However,
to Peterson's point earlier, by the way, is that technological advancement is exponential. So 40 years is less of a drop in the bucket than it feels like. And he also mentioned that not only have we not cracked it, we haven't even begun to comprehend how to crack it. It's not even on the horizon. Which, I mean, again, out of 13.7 billion years, Dillahunty's not wrong, but it's not as absurd as it sounds on the surface, which Peterson pointed out.
That method produced better results of letting it play itself with chess, giving it no opening book, giving it no history of chess, nothing.
Well, that's my point.
It didn't give it no rules. It gave it the...
That's a great point. Although I think I know what Dillahunty's going to say.
The rules of chess and the goal of the game.
Yes, but it didn't give it rules about how to play the game.
Correct.
Right, and that's because rule-based systems about how to play a game aren't optimal.
So, this is brilliant, because Peterson and Dillahunty are agreeing while also disagreeing. And this is actually why Peterson isn't debunking himself. This is exactly why. So Peterson agrees that you need to have rules, but only insofar as they're necessary to define how to play, to define the limitations on your ability to play the game and what you're driving at. The goal and the hard limits, and then everything else in there is creative. And what Peterson is saying is that any rules beyond those are bad. What Dillahunty is saying is that those rules qualify as the type of rules that Peterson's talking about, which they're just not. It's just not what Peterson's referring to. I'm pretty sure the 12 rules are more similar. Hold on a second. So to read a couple, imagine who you could be and then aim single-mindedly at that. This is from book 2. Abandon ideology. Do not do what you hate. Try to make one room in your home as beautiful as possible. So these are kind of vague almost. It's not telling you to do any specific things for their specificity. The rules are articulated in a specific way, like make one room in your house as beautiful as you possibly can. Like, that sounds very specific, but if you actually read the chapter, you're going to see that while that's an example, he's really just saying that you should pay attention and try to bring beauty into your life in a general way. So I think that you can make the argument he's not debunking himself based off of that kind of idea, that the rules that he's talking about are more similar to rules to the game or like general strategies as opposed to a set of, if this, then this rules that you would give a computer, which has constantly failed. And they're more analogous to just kind of like general attitudes, general hard limits than they are to actually playing the game in terms of like direct tactics. Because there's a difference between the minute tactics and the meta strategies. And Peterson is more knocking specific tactics as a bad way to run things.
No.
That's why.
What happened is the AI took the rules of how to play the game and what the winning goal is, and it experimented and found the best ways to achieve that goal. And I think that's what human beings have done throughout the entirety of history. We're beings in a physical universe. We have the rules. The goal is to survive, and I would say the goal should be to thrive.
Again, that's an arbitrary goal. I'm just going to keep pointing that out every single time he says it. It's arbitrary by his own admission. You can make the argument that all goals are arbitrary, but that's not a good way to look at it. But in my opinion, and also actually not just in my opinion, that's a bad way to look at it. But also Dillahunty would agree himself, as he says there, that goal is pretty arbitrary, at least morally speaking. So I'm just going to keep pointing that out.
And we are continually finding the best rules and the best methods. This exactly mirrors the moral system I'm talking about. The idea that there is someone on high telling the computer, don't play h4 as your first move, we threw that out because that's not the best way to find out things. Instead, we plopped the computer down just as we were plopped down in a universe when we gained consciousness and began interacting. And the computer, in the span of a few hours, discovered everything that humanity has discovered about chess. And now they are applying it to the sort of diagnostic things you were talking.
As Dillahunty says, though, the computer only discovers what humans know about chess, and then it can use it in unique ways. But the computer is not creative yet. So you could make the argument that this system actually is not the same as what humans do because the computer is inherently limited in that way. ChatGPT is also similarly limited. It only draws from a database of human knowledge. It cannot create itself, and it cannot go outside of that database or do experiments involving outside variables. So there's also that little slice at the idea.
Talking about. I think that is directly analogous to what the best explanations of what human beings have done. And what happens, from my perspective, is that the thinking about morality is so difficult for some that it's just easier to say, this person told me, or this God told me, or this is the case. Because having to sit down and...
Yeah, we should really just chalk up the is-ought problem to just, some people feeling like it's too hard to think about morality. Yeah, that's super reasonable.